Hello and welcome. Today I'd like to go over 10 helpful gameplay tips for new players in Deep Rock Galactic. My last video was a little more geared towards actual meta information like how to join games, some hidden stuff in the space rig, some useful upgrades, but today let's go over some more specific actual gameplay information that might help you win more missions. For our first topic, let's go over how to better communicate with your team. Let's start with the laser pointer. There's two unique functions of the laser pointer. First of all, by aiming it at any surface and pressing the interact key, you can place a personal waypoint that only you can see. It will remain there until you place another one, but you can only have one at a time. And the second function of the laser pointer is a ping system that your teammates can see. By simply pointing it at any surface and left clicking, it will create a mark that your teammates will be able to see for approximately 25 to 30 seconds. This can be used to direct your teammates' attention wherever you'd like, to a high above mineral that you can't reach, or perhaps a large enemy bearing down on them that they haven't noticed. Next up is good old-fashioned text chat. By pressing the default bind of T, you can type to your teammates. It's worth noting that this can be rebound through the options menu. And finally, we have voice chat. Through the options menu, you can set a push-to-talk key and also disable push-to-talk entirely. However, as it's a polite thing to do, I would leave push-to-talk enabled. Also, if you're having issues with voice chat, please check the audio menu and make sure that your voice chat is actually enabled. For our next tip, get Nitra. It may seem like a no-brainer, but it really can be the root of all your problems. As soon as you get out of the drop pod, locate the Nitra. Now, pulling back a little bit and looking at this from a different angle, there's a lot of different things you could focus on here. There's some gold up there on the wall, there's a chunk of Bismore in the corner, and there's also a vein of Nitra. You should prioritize that vein of Nitra, because as soon as you get a drop pod available to you, you're safer than you were when you started. Next, I'd like to go over how to efficiently use your ammo to avoid wasting resupply pods. And I'm not just talking about hitting your shots, but rather how to avoid losing ammo when resupplying. And before we start, I'd like to mention that this applies to all weapons for all classes, but as my scout weapons are a good example, I'll just be using them. Whenever you consume a single brick from a resupply pod, you will gain 50% ammo for all of your weapons and grenades. It's worth knowing that your magazine is considered when calculating max ammo. So, doing the math here, we see that for our primary, adding the mag to the reserves equals 136. Likewise, 650 with the secondary, and 18 for our utility weapon. So, pulling those numbers forward, we can see that half of 136 is 68 rounds, half of 650 is 325, and half of 18 is 9. So, this would mean that whenever we resupply, we gain 68, 325, and 9. However, if we do not have the available space in our max ammo, meaning that if we have more than 68 rounds remaining in our primary, whenever we resupply, we will lose part of this ammo. Therefore, ideally, you should be under 68 in your primary, 325 in your secondary, and 9 in your utility before you resupply. Obviously, these numbers will change depending on your class and your upgrades. However, the method stays the same. All of this information also applies to grenades. However, I don't think we need to go into great detail on it as there's very few of them. Now let's look at all of this in practice. I have less than 9 flares, less than 68 ammo in my primary, less than 325 in my secondary, and I only have 2 grenades. This way, when I resupply, I'll gain 50% in all of my weapons without hitting the max. And last and very importantly, ammo rounds down. So if you have an odd number of ammo as your max ammo, you're going to gain 1 less than possible. A very dramatic version of this can be seen here, where I only have 3 satchel charges at max, therefore I only gain 1 from a resupply. Now let's start to go over some more of the niche gameplay tips. First of all, we have ice damage versus flying enemies. This one's very simple. Every enemy in the game can be frozen, and all flying type enemies will die instantly when frozen, because they fall to the ground and shatter. So, simply either hit it with a cryo grenade as scout, or light it up with the cryo cannon as driller, and it'll drop dead. And a bonus tip, if you freeze an exploder, it'll prevent it from detonating. And I'll leave this section off with cryo cannon taking down a NATO site breeder and a whole squad of mech terror grabbers. Now let's talk about what you do, and more importantly, what you don't have to deposit in the pod for it to count at the end of the mission. When it comes to leaving a mission with minerals still in your inventory, there are only two things that don't count. Those are secondary objective items and large hand-carried objects, like compressed gold chunks, cubes, or in this case an Enor pearl. As we can see, I have enough Bulu caps to complete the secondary, a little bit of gold, and 3 malt stars, as well as carrying an Enor pearl into the pod with me. Now, when we get to the post-mission screen, we'll see the results of this. Now, in the end mission screen, we can see we received credit for the 14 Bismore plus hazard bonus that was already in the bank, the 3 malt stars that I was carrying, the 11 gold that I was carrying. However, we did not receive any Enor pearls or the secondary objective, which we had the materials to complete. However, since they were not deposited into a mule, minehead, or the pod, they do not count. Now let's talk about some much more micro tech, canceling reloads. The actual reload animations in this game are longer than the time it is required to replenish ammo to the magazine. If you pay attention to your ammo counter in the bottom right, and as soon as you see the number update, you tap your pickaxe key, you can actually cancel the full animation and get ammo back in your mag ready to fire faster. Now that may have been a lot to take in, so once again, the first clip is a non-interrupted reload, the second clip is an interrupted reload. It's worth noting that I'm holding left mouse button the entire time in the first clip, so it is firing as soon as possible. Next up, we have one of the most simple, but one of the strongest strategies that I have to teach you, which is juggling heavy objects. For the first trip, I'll simply carry the quark to the minehead. This takes a significant amount of time. But for the second trip, we are going to throw and catch the quark repeatedly. Note that you don't have to catch it out of the air, just throw it ahead of yourself and run to catch up with it. This makes it significantly faster as you can sprint to catch up with it. I was going to put a timer on this section, but I think it's pretty obvious. Next up, the contents of mini-mules. Little known fact that embarrassingly took me almost 1,000 hours to realize, mini-mules give you gold and nitro when you repair them. As we can see in the top right, I have no minerals in the bank. And upon repairing this mini-mule, I now have 44 nitra and 59 gold. Similar results can be seen with the second mini-mule, bringing us up to about 100 of each mineral. So, let's crunch some numbers. Here's the data from 10 mini-mule contents. So, averaging these out, we get about 50 apiece. So, pulling that number forward, we can see that with 2 mini-mules in a mission, we'll get about 100 nitra, plus or minus 10, and in a 3-mule mission, we'll get about 150, give or take. So, knowing this, in a 3-mule mission, just getting a little bit of nitra and repairing all the mission objectives will get you 2 resupply pods immediately, so it might not even be necessary to mine nitra at all in that mission. Just something to consider. Now I'd like to touch on a few different team plays that you can execute in multiplayer. Now, these are more than just platform synergies like Engineer and Scout. For example, falling from a great height and landing on another dwarf to avoid taking all damage. And if that didn't speak for itself, here's how much damage I would have taken had I not been caught. Yeah, that's pretty significant. Let's try to avoid that. Now we'll take a look at the same trick, but from a different angle. So this is from the catcher's point of view. You want to stand directly under the point they'll fall from, and if you can, look up and try to move into them if they're going to miss. But usually, standing still is the best play. Now, both the previous examples were pretty low to the ground, so let me just prove you that this does work at any height.
None can stand before us. Help!
I'm going to go out on a limb and say I would have died had I not been caught. So, similar to the last trick, you can actually go the other way with it. By jumping on another dwarf's head while they jump, you can actually receive a small boost. And I say small, but this is nothing to scoff at. This is a pretty significant amount of height to be climbing. I may be a scout, but this could happen with any class. Theoretically, you could boost a gunner out of a deep hole like this. Could be useful. While we're on the topic of fall damage, let's talk about being frozen while falling. First of all, here's our control sample. Jumping from this height, any player character will clearly die. That's far too high to survive. But if we actually manage to freeze our little vertically challenged friend before he hits the ground, he'll take no damage at all. This also works at any height. And obviously there's plenty more synergies and team plays than I could ever possibly list, and if I tried to include them all, this video would be an hour long, but I digress. Those are some of the more niche ones that I find really interesting. Thanks again to my buddy for helping me out with that section. It would have taken a while to do with pubs. And I know I said I'd make this video about gameplay tips, and this is more meta information, but I really do think it's worth stressing that this is not a game that requires you to try your hardest and be on the edge of your seat and antagonize your teammates whenever they fall short. It's just not necessary. This game is built around a cooperative experience and having fun in every mission. So, really just want to put that point all the way home, that this is a fun game. You know, throw it up salutes, throwing chunks of minerals around, pinging stuff over and over again, you know, mushroom, all this nonsense. It's more fun to not take this game so seriously, because I see more and more people every day that, you know, kick people for being low level, or this, that, and the other thing, accuse people of cheating, all that. So, that's my greatest piece of advice to improve your gameplay, is just have fun playing the game. So that's all I have for you today. I really appreciate you taking the time to watch this video, and I hope you learned something that'll help you out. I would also like to apologize for how long it took for me to publish this. As you know, COVID has been causing a lot of issues for a lot of people, and while I still have a job, hours have been ridiculous, and you know, just trying to find time to play games, much less make videos, has been difficult to say the least. But, you know, I'm not going to bore you with my problems. Everybody's got problems right now. But, once again, thank you for your time, and I hope you have a great day. See you next time. Also, I'm getting a new microphone a week from the day this video goes up, so bye-bye bad audio quality. That's all I got. Thank you.